Welcome to the Executive Coaching Podcast, where Executive Coach Alicia Cowan will discuss leadership topics and coaching solutions to tackle the most difficult problems that keep you from leading your team to success.
Hi there, leaders. It's Alicia Cowan, and welcome to episode number 25 of the Executive Coaching Podcast. So it is late October as we're recording this, but this is going to air early November, pre-holiday, but early November in 2023. And of course, you may be listening to this at some other date and time. But at this juncture, around the Cowan house, we got a lot going on in terms of like the end of year wrap up. And there's a couple of you listeners that have mentioned you love hearing updates on the house. So we'll keep them coming. The house is progressing still. We have electric, I think, going in. It's in, I guess, being turned on this week and being all trimmed out. So that's happening. And the sidewalk, I believe, is set to be poured in front of the house. And so hopefully that'll mean pavers going in to the driveway in front of the house and all of that. So we're getting there. And my project manager told me December. And so I'm holding into it. And maybe if we keep airing this live, putting this out there into the world, that hopefully it'll happen. So that's the house update. And kids are in the swing of things. We had a swim meet last weekend. We have homecoming coming up with a dress shopping this weekend and trunk or treat, because we're again headed into end of October and Halloween here in the US. So we have all that going on. And so it feels definitely like fall. And I want to talk about where we are at as we head into the last 2 months of the calendar year. And we're going to talk about a goal check-in. And this is inspired by a listener in Austin, Texas, that reached out and said they'd went back and listened to an earlier episode in the year, in episode 4. And we specifically talked about that episode and some ideas she had about her goals and her future. And so this one absolutely was inspired by that conversation. And we were thinking about big goals and dreams that she had in her head and where she wanted to head her life and what she had in terms of vision for her life. So we talked a little bit through that. And I think it was a perfect timing for me, because I think, what I'm hearing from you and out there in the world is that we're headed into we're in the last quarter, and we're headed in the last 2 months of the calendar year. And I think some people have this feeling of, okay, it's time to wrap it up. We're going to take our foot off the gas. It's time to, I'm not saying maybe give up on goals, but it's time to just kind of, wrap things up and pick it all back up next year. And so some folks are doing the opposite, and they're like guns a-blazing, right? Towards the end of the year of like, okay, full speed ahead towards the end of the year and trying to pack it all in before the holidays. So they're trying to squeeze out every last drop out of the year. And so I think even some folks are feeling that with like back-to-back meetings and just like sort of this like frenetic energy. And neither one's wrong, but I want to challenge you. And so while we're in this mode of closing out the calendar year, rather than just going into default mode, and either maybe it's that coasting of like, okay, let's just take our foot off the gas and cruise. It's time to head into the holidays. Or maybe it is on the opposite. It's like, okay, how do we make sure we get the most out of this? And like, it's maybe a little bit of overdoing it. I just want to inspire you to potentially take a breath. Just consider where you're at in relation to your goals. And before the holiday season really kicks in here, consciously just decide, where do I stand in relationship in those goals? Where do I want to be in relation to those goals when I'm sitting in January looking back on how I finished out the year? How do I want to think about it? And what does my future self want me to be thinking about how we closed out November and December? And just to feel good about that. And so it's a little bit of a recentering, regrounding exercise that we're going to talk through today about just where you're at to those goals. So let's revisit. If you really want to dig in, like I said, you can go back. Episode 4 is the one where we talked about goals. And that was really at the beginning of the calendar year here in 2023. But let's revisit, like, why do we go after big goals? I am a big believer in really big goals. And that could mean anything to you personally, of course, but it's really anything that is going to stretch us. It's going to be bigger and make us bigger than we think that we can actually be. And why do I believe so firmly in this? I believe deeply that we have a calling. If you're called to do something and it's in service to the world, there's a reason for it. And so it can be as frivolous and fun, or it can be pretty serious and weighty to you. It can be, whatever type of goal. But if you feel so deeply called in your core to do something, there's a reason for it. And, at times it's not even about getting to the place where we've achieved the goal because we believe like we're going to be happier, or we're going to get to that sense of accomplishment. And absolutely, that's great. That's great. And we can have that sense of pride, and we can have that feeling. But it's not always just about having the achievement or having the thing that we're going after. It can be truly about who we become in the process, how we've grown, what we've learned, how we feel about ourselves, that feeling of pride, and how we feel about our ability to do hard things. And why do we not go after these hard things? Or why do we not set big, crazy goals first? And what keeps us stuck? Well, again, we went through this in episode 4, but I'll revisit it in a brief overview here of the motivational triad, what keeps us stuck. When we set big, crazy goals, the brain immediately wants to put us back into safety mode. And so it means that like our subconscious primal brain is driving us to always seek pleasure, to avoid pain and discomfort, to save and conserve energy. And that is the exact opposite of what it takes to go after big goals, right? So to go after big goals and these big things that we want to achieve, we have to have delayed gratification. We have to willingly put ourselves through discomfort and at times experience pain. I'm not saying like physical pain, but sometimes, but emotional pain, emotional discomfort. And then we have to go out and really, truly, consciously expend our energy and take action towards our goals. And it's exact opposite of what our brain is wired to do. And so at times it just feels so contradictory and uncomfortable. And we have to choose that. Sounds really fun, right? So, well, how do we overcome this and how do we work through it? And that's what I'll do. And I just did this exercise myself, and I was working through these questions that really helped me reground and refocus. How do we overcome it? How do we work through it? Well, really easily is, you probably heard this concept of like knowing your why, but a really great question that was just asked to me by my coach to reground and recenter me was, how does this goal fit in with your long-term vision for your life? Boom. I was instantly refocused on like, okay, this thing that is super painful right now that I don't necessarily want to do or feels super painful completely fits in with my long-term vision of what I want to do with my life and how I want to see my life in the future. And it like so powerfully hit me that even though I was experiencing some discomfort in the moment, it was absolutely something that I wanted as a part of my life. And so I get to choose. And when you think about like, what is the long-term vision of your life? And is that why you're going after what you're going after compelling to you? And there's no right or wrong answer. You may feel like you want to make some changes or shifts in that. You can decide what you want to delete and what you want to add. And just answering these questions can help with your direction and recentering yourself. Then I took some time to think about again. So if I have this long-term vision for my life and I feel a sense of clarity and re-looking at it, re-looking at that long-term vision and what I want my future, I get to reflect now. And I did this exercise just this morning. Like I said, I went through and said, okay, number one, what went well so far this year? And listed out all these things that I did accomplish and that went really, really well. I also listed out what didn't go so well, what was not what I would view as a success. And then I went through and decided against my goal, what went according to my plan? Like, how did I set a plan for myself and what goals did I achieve and what did not go according to plan whatsoever? I also asked myself some questions like, did I like how I spent my time? Is there any other ways that I need to improve how I'm spending my time and what I'm spending my time on? And it really helped me really look through it. And I did this mentally probably for about a week after I'd really been challenged by my coach to kind of think through my priorities and what I was plugging into my days and how it was serving my long-term vision for my life. Right. And so it helped me really clarify. And then I wrote down exactly how I was spending my time and how I didn't. I was able to make some shifts based on that. And some things I subtracted and some things I added. So it wasn't all about adding. So no, this is not a push to burn out or to overwhelm or to overload. I think it very much can recenter you and say there might be some things to delete as well. So the last question, how do I want to close out this year? How do I want to feel in January about November, December? And what do I want to feel like when I close this year out? How do I want to think and feel about how I spent my time? Okay, so hopefully this is helpful. And again, this is meant for you to just consider, what do I feel compelled and called to do or not? And I believe that we can listen to that inner wisdom and that deep, deep sense of knowing and then go after it consciously. I think that's all I'm asking is really do it consciously rather than unconsciously. Like I said, I've been watching and I get it. There is so much that we're inundated from the outside world right now. There's so much going on. And then there's so much we're being called to do as we head into the holiday season. I get it. I get it that we are being asked. There's another layer of expectation that's being potentially put on us, whether we're putting it on ourselves or maybe others are absolutely asking us to do more. But let's consciously decide, what do we want to do and how do we want this end of the year to look like? And again, of course, I'm talking to you as a senior leader, as an executive. So, I'm talking to you as like thinking of this through the consideration of you as a leader and within the workplace. But of course, it spills over into personal time, and especially at this time of the year. So let's do some reflecting. And again, we get one last breath here. Again, this is going to air in November of 2023. And I know I talked a lot about this in the context of this holiday season, but no matter what time of year that you're listening to this, I think it can be really relevant. If you're setting big goals for yourself and you're at a point that you can reflect and think back and consider where you're at in terms of the progress and what you still want to go after, it's a great time to just sit and reflect and think about, where do you see this headed? And where do you see the vision of your life? And how does this current set of challenges and this current work that's right in front of you potentially fit into that long-term vision? We need your dreams. We need the dreams of great leaders, and we need you to keep dreaming and then keep taking action towards those goals. And if you don't feel called to do it, potentially it's time to delete. All right. Your inner wisdom will tell you and guide you along the way. So let's go get it. All right. As always, please, if you have any questions, comments, or want to talk more about this, you know where to reach me. It's always in my show notes where you can reach out and connect directly with me and we can schedule a call to talk through this. And I also want to let you know, we've got some exciting things coming up in future episodes. I am doing some content planning for upcoming episodes, and I'm excited to say I am lining up some special guests, some people that I plan on bringing on to expose you to and bring some different voices onto the podcast, and people that are very near and dear to me that I want to expose you to and share with you. So look forward to that. And if there is anything that you want to hear more of, let me know. It's always open to it. Love, love, love. I've heard from a lot of you listeners recently, and I love hearing from you and hearing your feedback and what is on your mind. So thanks for connecting and staying in touch. I really appreciate it. As always, thank you so much for listening, and we'll talk to you next time. Go get them. Bye.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Executive Coaching Podcast with Alicia Cowan. If you're ready to have an executive coach who's ready to help you lead your team to success, then book an introductory call at aliciacowancoaching.com/call.